welcome to our Pesach morning service. Welcome to Stevenage and the Three Counties communities as well. Rabbi Danny Rich and I are delighted to be leading Pesach morning service today from Finchley Progressive Synagogue, along with our wonderful musicians Franklin and Dean. We're on page 437 as we go into Psalm 57. Nachon libi Elohim, nachon libi, Ashira v'zamera, ora chavodi, ora hanevel v'chino a'ira shecha, odacha v'amim Adonai, azamcha bal umim, ki gadol ad shamayim chastecha, v'ad shechakim amitecha. So as always, we get to have a taste of Song of Songs, Shir HaShirim, on the first day of Pesach, and Danny and I will read responsively until we reach Dodi Li, where we sing to the traditional melody. The voice of my beloved, there he comes, leaping over mountains, bounding over hills.
My beloved is like a gazelle, like a young stag.
Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing in at the windows, looking through the lattice, and he says to me,
Rise up, my love, my fair one, come away.
For now the winter is past.
The rains are over and gone.
The flowers appear on the earth. The time of singing has come.
The song of the dove is heard in our land.
The green figs are ripening on the trees.
The vines in blossom are fragrant.
Rise up, my love.
My fair one, come away.
My dove, in the clefts of the rock, in the covert of the cliff, let me see your face, let me hear your voice.
Your voice is sweet and your face is lovely.
Where has your beloved gone, O fairest among women?
Which way has your beloved turned, that we may seek him with you?
My beloved has gone down to his garden, to the beds of spices.
To pasture his flock in the gardens, and to gather lilies.
My beloved is mine, and I am his.
Who delights among the lilies.
Set me as a seal upon your heart.
As a seal upon your hand.
For love is strong as death.
Passion mighty as the grave.
Its flashes are fiery flashes.
A raging flame.
Many waters cannot quench love.
No flood can sweep it away.
Were you to offer for love all the wealth of your house,
You would be held in scorn.
it's a miracle, I think, every time we read Song of Songs, how the rabbis made it into the canon, but we have this extraordinary rendition of love, whether it be euphemistic divine love, whether it be the coming of spring, as we go into Dodi Li. For a weekday festival, page 453, as we offer Psalm 100, Hariu, Much is written about Psalm 100 being an expression being used at times of sacrifice and offerings, but really now being an expression of the utmost gratitude for having weathered life to this point. Page 456 for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotze or uvrei choshech, osei shalom uvrei et hakol. Hame'ir la'aretz v'lad alehem aleha barachamim, uvtuvo mechadesh b'chol yom tamid, ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, Mal haaretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha, v'al mo'oreo she'asita, yifa'arucha sela. Baruch ata Adonai, yotzeh ha'ma'orot. We praise you, O God, creator of light. Great is your love for us, eternal God, and abundant your compassion. Our ancestors trusted in you and you taught them the laws of life. So be gracious to us and teach us. Incline our hearts to hear your words, to know and understand, to learn and teach, and with love to uphold the truths of your Torah. Open our eyes to your teaching. Make us faithful to your commandments and wholehearted in the love and awe of your name. For in love you summon us to serve you and proclaim your unity. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher ba'amo Yisrael ba'ahava. We praise you, O God. In love you have called your people Israel to serve you. The Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Israel. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Haftarah eit Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levavecha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol mo'odecha. V'hayu harvarim ha'ele, asher anochi metzavcha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta be'in v'shivtecha beitecha, v'lechtecha b'derech, v'shoch bechecha, v'kumecha. כשאתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לו תותפות בין עיניך, וחתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Good and beautiful and true, sound, established and enduring are these words now and forever. Everlasting God is our sovereign, the rock of Jacob is the shield of our salvation. Eternal God, you redeemed us from Egypt and freed us from the house of bondage. Then with great joy Moses, Miriam and all Israel together sang to you this song. Song the redeemed sang to your name at the shore of the sea. With one accord they gave thanks and proclaimed your sovereignty, singing,
Adonai Imlo Leolam Vaed. To Yisrael, Kumar Be'ezrat Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai, Tzvaot Shemo Kadosh Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Kol Yisrael, Kol Yisrael. Amen. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Agitei Latecha. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Agitei Latecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocheh Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'mevi Gola Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Yahava, Melech Ozer u'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Vezrat Sarah. Ata gibor leolam Adonai, Mechaye metim ata Rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach u'morid hageshem, Mazriach hashemesh u'morid hatal. Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechaye metim b'rachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim, U'matir asurim, U'mekayem emunato lishenei afo. Mi chamocha ba'al gevurot, U'mido melach, Melech memit u'mechayeh, U'matzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman ata l'chayot metim. Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hametim. We revere and sanctify you, even as in the prophet's vision the seraphim sanctified you in the temple. As it is written, they called to one another and proclaimed,
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melo kol haaretz kevodo.
Adonai Adonenu, ma'adir shimcha b'chol haaretz.
Baruch kevod Adonai, mimkomo, mimkomo.
במקומו הוא ייפן ברחמים, ויכון עם המיוחדים, שמו ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים באהבה, שמה אומרים.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, הוא ישמיענו ברחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי.
Ani Adonai Elohechem.
ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור,
Emloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, Ledovado, Alleluia. Ledovado, 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 nagid god lecha, Ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nagdish. Ledovado, 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 nagid god lecha, ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nagdish. B'shivracha Eloheinu, mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Ki el melech gadol, ki el melech gadol, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ledovado, 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 nagid god lecha, ulenetzach netzachim, ulenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nagdish.
You have given us a special task among the peoples. In your love and favor, you have sanctified us by your commandments, drawn us near to your service, and charged us to make known your great and holy name. In your love, eternal one, our God, you have given us feasts of joy and seasons of gladness. Among them this festival of unleavened bread, season of our freedom, to unite us in worship and remembrance of the exodus from Egypt. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, יעלה ויבוא ויזכר זיכרוננו, וזיכרון כל עמך בית ישראל לפניך, לטובה ולברכה, לחיים ולשלום, ביום חג המצות הזה. זוכרנו אדוני אלוהינו בו לטובה.
אמן.
ופוקדנו בו לברכה.
אמן.
הושיענו בו לחיים.
אמן.
השיאנו אדוני אלוהינו את ברכת מועדיך לשמחה ולששון, כאשר רצית ואמרת לברכנו. קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך. שבענו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, ותהא ליבנו לעובדך באמת. הנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו, בשמחה מועדי קודשך. ברוך אתה אדוני, מקדש ישראל והזמנים. Eternal God, be gracious to your people Israel, and in your love accept their prayers. May our worship now and always be acceptable in your sight. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. We praise you, O God, whom alone we worship in reverence. Modim anachnu lach, she'atah hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu le'olam va'ed. Tzur chayenu magen yish'enu, atah hu lador vador. Nodeh lecha u'nsaper tehilatecha, al chayenu hamsurim biyadecha, al nishmotenu podot lach, al nisecha shebechol yom imanu, al niflootecha v'tovatecha, shebechol eit, erev v'avocher v'tzoharaim. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulecha na'eh el hodot. We praise you, O God, source of goodness, to whom our thanks are due. O God and God of our ancestors, bless us with the threefold benediction of the Torah. Yevarecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
Ken yehi ratzon.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
Ken yehi ratzon.
Yisad Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom.
Amen. Ken yehi ratzon. Sim shalom. Sim shalom. Sim shalom. Tova bracha.
Baruch atah Adonai, oseh hashalom. Let's take a moment for silent prayer. Pesach morning, we go now to Halal, page 468, as we offer the blessing for Halal, and then the Shehechianu for doing so for the first time. We've reached this morning of Pesach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu likro et ha'halel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Page 469 as we go into Psalm 114, the verse that marks Pesach.
B'tzeit Yisrael miMitzrayim Beit Yaakov me'Yamlez. B'tzeit Yisrael miMitzrayim Beit Yaakov me'Yamlez. Hayta Yehuda lekosho Yisrael mamshelotav hayam Ravayanos hayadem yisrael le'achor. B'tzeit Yisrael miMitzrayim Beit Yaakov me'Yamlez. B'tzeit Yisrael miMitzrayim Beit Yaakov me'Yamlez.
Heharim
Rakadu chelim
rakadu chelim
Gavaot
gavot
Kivnei tzon
netzon
Malach hayam
malach hayam
Gitanus
Titanus
Hayadem
Hayadem
Yisov le'achor
Yisof le'achor
Heharim
Heharim
Tirkadu chelim
Tirkadu chelim
Gavaot
Gavot
Kivnei tzon
Kivnetzon
Milifnei Adon
Milefnei Adon
Uli Aretz
Uli Aretz
Milifnei
Milefnei
Eloah Yaakov
Elohai Yaakov
Hahofchi Hatzor
Hahochi Hatzor
Agam Ma'ir
Hagamayim
Chalamish
Halamish
L'mayim no Ma'ir
Lamayim.
Psalm 118. את אדוני היית זאת נתלת בינינו עשה אדוני נגילה ונשמחה בו Kriyat Torah for the festivals, page 497. Days to come, the mountain of God's house shall be established as the highest mountain, towering above the hills, and all the nations shall stream to it. Many peoples will go and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Eternal One, to the house of the God of Jacob, that we may learn God's ways and walk in God's paths.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, u'devar Adonai mirushalayim.
Beit Yaakov lechuvanelcha b'or Adonai. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadolul Adonai eti, u'neramama shemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai hagedula, hagvura v'hatiferet, v'hanetzachah. Kol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, lecha Adonai hamamlacha, v'hamitnaseh.
Having Danny here meant I could slip out to the tot service where they are preparing a Pesach song and may bring it back to us. So Torah reading today is the best. We go back to the book of Exodus that reminds us of the story. I will open with just the reminder of that night, Leil Shimurim, of what happened, of who left, of who this mixed multitude was. I love how Hertz, if you're following in a Hertz Chumash, talks about the mixed multitude as not a desirable class of associates who took the opportunity of the panic in Egypt to join the Israelites when they left. And that sense of mixed multitude, I feel we've tried to transform into something positive, because we are always a mixed congregation. But here very much, Hertz, as he always does with that unsparing candor as he reads Torah, suggests it's an undesirable mix. This, of course, when Danny goes into the section of remembering the commandment, we're told not only was this important for that night, but it should be told to every generation of the house of Israel. And then, of course, Danny will share that immortal line that really makes us make this Seder. The Seder is the very last thing that any secular Jew drops. More than Yom Kippur, more than the Day of Atonement, it is this opportunity for a meal together, for somehow remembering the identity of Judaism. And we are told, V'higata levincha b'yom hahu lemor ba'avor zeh asa Adonai li b'tzeiti miMitzrayim. You have to tell your children that it was on this day that God brought me out of Egypt. In that way, we are told to make the Seder, the telling of Pesach, as personal, as real, as contemporary as we possibly can, which is why there's a Haggadah for everything under the sun. We discovered last night there's a Hamilton Haggadah. There is every Haggadah that captures where we are in our life now. So I'm going to ask you now, Seder, what marks Seder the most of all. Indeed, many say, throw away the Haggadah, throw away the books to help you. Just ensure you are asking questions. I'm going to ask you 3 questions now to ponder, to reflect on through the Torah reading, through the service. Do you feel more free or less free than you did at this time last year? How about at this Pesach compared with other Passover times? Or matzah, which we're going to hear about, is a basic food, sustenance but not luxurious. What are the basics in your life? What are your extras that you've discovered? And as we hear about the leaving in the middle of the night, if you had to leave your home quickly in the middle of the night, what might you bring with you? What might you leave behind? So our Torah reading starts in the book of Exodus, chapter 12. We're reading from 37 to 42, and then we're going to jump over to chapter 13. So delighted to be calling Robin up for a virtual Aliyah LaTorah. Ta'amod, Elisheva bat Sarah va'Avraham levarech et haTorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamorah.
Baruch Adonai Mvorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yisu v'nei Yisrael me Rameses Sukkata כשש מאות אלף רגלי הגברים לבד מיטף וגם ערב רב עלה איתם וצאן ובקר מקנה כבד מאוד ויופו את הבצק אשר הוציאו ממצרים עוגות מצות כי לא חמץ כי גרשו ממצרים ולא יכלו להתממיה וגם שדה לא עשו להם ומושב בני ישראל אשר ישבו במצרים 30 שנה ו400 שנה ויהי מקץ 30 שנה ו400 שנה ויהי בעצם היום הזה יצאו כל צבאות אדוני מארץ מצרים ליל שימורים הוא לאדוני להוציאם מארץ מצרים הוא הלילה הזה לאדוני שמורים לכל בני ישראל לדורותם. So the children of Israel journeyed from Ramesses towards Sukkot, and there were 600,000 of them, just the men, let alone the children. So we know, so just the warriors, just the army-aged men. And also a mixed multitude came up with them, and much sheep and cattle, in fact, an enormous amount of animals as well. And they baked unleavened bread as they left Egypt, cakes of matzah. And they didn't have time to let it rise because they were rushing from Egypt. Indeed, they could not wait at all. And they had no time to make themselves anything else except the matzah. And so it was that the children of Israel dwelt in Egypt for 430 years. And so it was at the end of the 430 years, indeed on that very same day, that the hosts of Adonai, the spirits, hosts of God, left Egypt. And it was a night of watching, a night for God of bringing them out of Egypt. And it continues to be a night of watching for God for all the generations of the house of Israel.
We're now moving to chapter 13, verses 3 to 10, I think. Yeah, got it. Yep. Vayomer Moshe, and Moses spoke El Ha'am, saying, spoke to the people, saying, Zacher et hayom hazeh, remember this day, Asher yitzatem mimitzrayim, which is the day on which you departed from Egypt, mi beit avadim, from the house of slavery, ki b'chozek yad, because with a mighty hand, Hotzi Adonai etchem, Adonai brought you out, mizeh, from there. V'lo ya'achel chametz hayom, atem yotzim, b'chodesh ha'aviv. And you will not, it should be yochal actually, you will not eat chametz on that day, which was the one when you were brought out in the month of Aviv, of course now Nisan. I'm not going to translate two words in this portion, chametz for the time being, and so'or, which we come to later on, other than to say they both have something to do with the English word leaven, and if you know what the English word leaven is, then you're doing better than I was until I tried to check it out this morning. V'hayan, it came to pass, ki yeviacha Adonai el eretz haKanaani, that God will bring, Adonai will bring you to the land of the Canaanites, the Chachiti and the Hittites, the Emori and the Amorites, the Chachivi and the Chiviites, the Yevusi and the Jebusites. Asher nishba la'avotecha, as God swore to your ancestors, latet lach, to give it to them. Eretz zavat chalav udavash, a land which flows with milk and date honey. V'avadta et ha'avodah hazot, b'chodesh hazeh, and you will carry out this avodah, this worship, this service, in that month. Shivat yamim, for 7 days, tochal matzot, you will eat unleavened bread. Uvayom hashvi'i, and the 8th day, so the 7th day, Chag Ladonai is a festival to God. Matzot yechel et shivat yamim. So I'm getting the whether it's an active or pausive. Matzot yochal et shivat yamim. For this is a positive instruction. For 7 days you will eat matzot. V'lo yira'eh lecha chametz, and there will not be seen with you chametz. V'lo yira'eh lecha sa'or b'chol gvulecha, And there will not be seen with you Sa'or in all of your borders, boundaries, something like that. V'higadta levincha, and you will tell your child by Yom Hahu on that day, lemor, saying, Ba'avur, on account ze asa Adonai li, on account of this which Adonai did for me, but Seiti mi Mitzrayim, when I went out of Egypt. V'haya lecha le'ot al yadacha, and you will mark it as a sign upon your hand. V'lezikaron bein einecha, and as a memorial between your eyes. Lema'an, in order that tihye Torat Adonai beficha, that the Torah of Adonai will be in your mouth. Ki v'yad chazaka hotziecha Adonai mi Mitzrayim, for with a mighty hand Adonai brought you out from Egypt. Shamarta et hachuka hazot, and you will be careful out, or you will keep this chuk, this judgment, lemoadah, in its appointed time. Meyamim yemimah, which is a metaphor meaning eternally, from day to day, from days to days.
So over to you, Robin, to finish the blessing.
Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chai olam natan Eloheinu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshakoach and Misha Berach for you, for over this spring festival as we move into this next stage of our year, and blessings to you and John and your home. We are going to pause now, just before we go to Haftarah and Sarah reading from the prophet Nehemiah, to bring in our Tot service who have a Pesach song to share with us. We take very seriously, Ladorotam, to all your generations. So off you go, Zoe and Annabelle, if you're up for it.
We wanted to remind you what happened at the start of the story. Annabelle has told me the whole story, but we wanted to remind you what happens right at the beginning. So we've got just a song to remind you about that. Are you ready, Annabelle? Okay. Where is baby Moses, Moses, Moses? Where is baby Moses? On the river Nile. Thank you very much, Annabelle. We just wanted to remind you that start of the story. I'm sure that you will tell the rest of it at your Seders this evening.
Thank you so much. We love to see. So our Tots began Pesach with us on Friday night as we cleared out our houses with candles, feathers and spoons, and lovely that you're with us this morning too. So now let's, for those of you ready to rise, we'll just rise for Hagbah for a moment to see the Torah scroll lifted.
Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato. Adonai
we go over to the Haftarah. Delighted Sarah's marking her birthday to read the Haftarah for us from Nehemiah. Nehemiah and Ezra, often seen as very tough to the children of Israel as they come back out of exile and are schooled back into the Judaism, well, the proto-Judaism, the Hebrew religion that they'd lost. But here we see the echoes, the reminding of them of this story, the center story of their identity as Hebrews, as Egypt and coming out of Egypt is recalled.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bacha b'nevi'im tovim, v'ratza b'divrechem hane'emarim ba'emet. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo, u'v'Yisrael amo, u'v'nevi'ei ha'emet v'tzadek. You alone are the eternal. You made the heavens, even the highest heavens, and all their starry host, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them. You gave life to everything, and the multitudes of heaven worship you. You are the eternal God who chose Avram and brought him out of Ur of the Chaldeans and named him Abraham. You found his heart faithful to you, and you made a covenant with him to give to his descendants the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Jebusites, and Girgashites. You have kept your promise because you are righteous. You saw the suffering of our ancestors in Egypt. You heard their cry at the Red Sea. You sent signs and wonders against Pharaoh, against all his officials and all the people of his land, for you knew how arrogantly the Egyptians treated them. You made a name for yourself, which remains to this day. You divided the sea before them so that they passed through it on dry ground, but you hurled their pursuers into the depths like a stone into mighty waters. By day you led them with a pillar of cloud, and by night with a pillar of fire to give them light on the way they were to take. You came down on Mount Sinai. You spoke to them from heaven. You gave them regulations and laws that are just and right, and decrees and commands that are good. You made known to them your holy Sabbath and gave them commands, decrees, and laws through your servant Moses. In their hunger, you gave them bread from heaven, and in their thirst, you brought them water from the rock. You told them to go in and take possession of the land you had sworn with uplifted hand to give them. But they, our ancestors, became arrogant and stiff-necked, and they did not obey your commands. They refused to listen and failed to remember the miracles you performed among them. They became stiff-necked and in their rebellion appointed a leader in order to return to their slavery. But you are a forgiving God, gracious and compassionate, slow to anger and abounding in love. Therefore, you did not desert them. Al Haftarah ve'al ha'vodah ve'al ha'nevi'im ve'al yom hag hamatzot hazeh shenata lanu Adonai Eloheinu l'shashon u'l'shemechu l'chavod u'litiferet. Al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach u'muvarechim otach יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש ישראל והזמנים.
Yeshua Koach, beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah, and marking Pesach as these Haftarah blessings do. Thank you. We go into the community prayers, where I'm delighted to be asking Terry Wolfe to read them for us today. So Terry, if you unmute yourself. There.
Eternal God, we ask your blessing on our Queen Elizabeth and all the royal family, as well as those who govern our country. Guide them and all who govern our country with the spirit of wisdom and compassion, so that they care for the citizen and the stranger and bring benefit to all the inhabitants of our country and the world. Bless all our brothers and sisters of the house of Israel. Bless our congregation and all its members. Be with those who seek your presence and all who are in need of healing, spiritual or physical. Let them know that you are near to comfort them and sustain them. May peace exist in the state of Israel soon and in our time. May you, eternal God, grant blessing to her, established as an age-old dream and the home to the oppressed. May its leaders and citizens be inspired with a faithfulness to the aims of its founders, and may the country be imbued with the prophetic ideals of liberty and justice always. May this festival renew our energy to build and sustain a better world and to deepen our gratitude for so much that surrounds us. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. We are in the middle of page 501. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki nizgav shemo levado. Behold, a good doctrine has been given to you. Do not forsake it.
As we prepared, the team here prepared for the service this morning, we've got 2 rabbis, 2 musicians and 2 technical people, which could be a joke in itself, but I won't go down that path this morning. The head of cameras, David, said to me, now you are going to stand still, aren't you? I don't know why he could possibly think that I do anything else, but I guess he must be used to my habit to walk around the beamer, which makes cameraing the service rather more difficult than it might otherwise be. So, David, I'm going to stand as still as I possibly can while I think about what I want to say. And indeed, it was your question which gave me the theme for today's Devar Torah, because I wanted to try and think, what is the connection between Pesach and the situation in which we find ourselves? And I realized that it had something to do with rules and regulations. And David, of course, knows, amongst others, that I am somebody who always obeys the rules. I am, by instinct, I say tongue-in-cheek, somebody who keeps to the regulations. And of course, one of the things that we've had to think about over all of this period, for the last year and a half, is about keeping to the rules and regulations. Our government and our local authorities, week on week, month on month, and even year on year, have issued regulations and rules which are intended to make us safe and to make others safe. And sometimes we thought they were not logical, and sometimes we thought they were too late, and sometimes we thought they were too rigorous. But nevertheless, most of us, most of the time, have tried to keep to them with success. Of course, there's been a small group who, either out of ideology or simply perverseness or lawlessness, have chosen to break as many of them as they can. But most of us have tried to be faithful to them, to their spirit, if not to their letter. Which brings me, of course, to Pesach. Because if you're a person who loves rules and regulations, being a Jew is probably a good start. But being a Pesach Jew, if you love rules and regulations, is probably the best type of Jew you can be. Because if you heard our Torah portion today, I don't know what the difference between Se'or and Chametz is, for example. But I looked them up. And Chametz, it says, is to be sour or leavened. And Chometz, of course, is vinegar. And then I looked up Se'or, which says to be leavened or fermented. And so I thought, how do we get from saying you can't have things that are leavened or fermented to where we are today? So of course you begin in the Mishnah and you begin in Pesachim, when what is very clear is that as far as the rabbis are concerned, there are 5 grains capable of leavening, the process of leavening: wheat, barley, spelt, oats and rye. And so we know that generally we can't have those things in our houses at this time. By the way, the rabbis say that rice and bean and pea are incapable of leavening. And that's why we can use those flours amongst other flours. But anyway, we come to matzah, which of course is made of the very wheat, the very product which is one of the forbidden ones. And by the way, just to reassure you, if you look in another part of the Mishnah, these are amongst the things which are forbidden, which may give you a clue about what leaven is. You can't use Babylonian sauce, which is a type of porridge. You can't use Persian beer. You can't use Edomite vinegar. You can't use Egyptian beer, which is a type of laxative. You can't use dyer's pulp. You can't use bookbinder's glue. You can't be butcher's or baker's loaf. And there was a debate about women's face powder, but no conclusion was reached. And you may not use anything of corn. So, one of the challenges, what does all this mean? How can I keep the rules safely? Well, I know that matzah, of course, is one of those 5, but it's not considered leaven because you add water to it, and lo and behold, it arrives in 18 minutes and it's okay. And I want to tell you that for Pesach, I decided that for once in my life, I would just follow the rules. But whose rules do I follow? Well, of course, as a devoted husband, I follow my wife's rules. And my wife, unlike me, hides the toaster in the garage and takes all my cereals away and puts them in my study and tells them I can't eat them for 7 days. And then I ask her, what are we going to do about hand sanitization? because we've seen that there's an advert that says kosher lePesach hand sanitation. And now you know why I'm suspicious of rules and regulations.
Thank you, Danny, so much. I have to confess I did not replace my hand sanitizer for kosher lePesach. Let us continue with Aleinu. We're in the spirit at the moment of Elijah. Elijah as the forerunner to the Messianic age, and we think of this prayer of Aleinu as calling us to a time when the world might be as it should be rather than as it is. Page 520, sorry Dean. Turn now to Kaddish together. Next Shabbat, which will be the 7th day of Pesach, we will offer a full Yizkor memorial service. Today I invite us all to think of those who have been with us at past Sedarim, past Passovers, Pesach. Last night my mother remembered my grandfather and how he was when he led Seder when they were children. So think of those that you would normally and have in the past had around you at this time of year. Zichronam livracha. May their memories be for a blessing for each of us who recall our beloved family members and friends as we offer the words of the Kaddish together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shamei rabba bi'ama divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayachon v'yomechon Uvachaye dochol Beit Yisrael, Magala v'zman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mavorach le'olam Amei Maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'av v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithada v'yitale v'yitalal shemed kudisha brichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbachata v'nechemata. Da'amiram bi'ama v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shamaya. Hayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael V'al kol b'nei Adam, v'imru. Amen. So I don't think we have our chair with us, so I'm going to offer just a couple of reminders for us over this next busy Pesach period. Tonight, of course, is our communal Seder. As we're not cooking for you, you can change your mind and join us tonight. So that is 6 o'clock. If you haven't already told us you're coming, it might mean that you won't have a speaking part, but we would love to welcome you. There is always space at this virtual table. Next, is there anything important this week? So Friday night, Shabbat morning is the end of Pesach, ending with a Mamunia-style brunch online, hosted by Cafe Ivriar, an opportunity for us to bring other customs from the Jewish world into our Pesach celebrations. And then following on from that, on Wednesday the 7th, I see that Leslie has reminded us in the chat, we mark Yom HaShoah here within our congregation, but we will be joined by 3 counties, by Stevenage, by Norwich, Liberal, by BKY. I may have left off someone else, but we'll be so delighted as we hear the memories of Gloria Silver about her father. It should be a very special evening, preceded by the lighting of candles and prayers for us as we mark Yom HaShoah in a different way than Holocaust Memorial Day. So hope to see you there. We finished this morning with Adon Olam, as we offered yesterday, a truly special Sephardi melody of Adon Olam by the composer Flori Jagoda, who in Fragish style, I've learnt an enormous amount this week, and she of the Hava Nagila style of music of East-West coming together. We are very committed in our congregation to be bringing Sephardi, Mizrahi melodies, and our musicians have worked hard on this. So Adon Olam, which can be found on page 525.
Adonai li velo ira, Adon olam Hashem alad, b'terem kol yetzir nivra, li'etz nasa v'chetzo kol, azai melech shemo nikra.
Beautiful, thank you so much. A final blessing for us before we go into Kiddush. The blessing that was said by the outgoing watch to the incoming watch at the temple. And I think of us and how Danny and I brought Torah, reminding us in every generation. And this, of course, is our generation to pick up the mantle of representing ourselves as Jews and marking Pesach. Yehi Adonai Eloheinu imanu kasher haya im avotenu, al ya'azvenu va'al yitshenu lachatot levavenu elav, lelechet b'chol darachav. Eternal God, be with us as you were with our ancestors. Never leave us or forsake us. Incline our hearts towards you and lead us in your ways. So we've just got the hand sanitizer up here ready before I hand out matzah to us all. Kosher LePesach matzah. No, not kosher LePesach hand sanitizer, but kosher LePesach matzah.
See, the sermon gets you talking.
Yes, it really does. I've just had something from someone saying, oh, I shouldn't have had Marmite on my matzah this morning after Danny's sermon.
Or maybe you should.
Or maybe you should, depending on how you're keeping it. Okay, so Danny, you have wine there to offer, and we will offer the counting of the Omer the first day, just before we go into Kiddush. So today, of course, is the first. In observance of that tradition, we count the days of the early harvest season of ancient Israel from Pesach till Shavuot, and symbolically walk once more the road from Egypt to Sinai, from liberty to law, from freedom to responsibility. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kedishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat ha'omer. Hayom hu yom rishon shel ha'omer. So the first day of the Omer. Danny, have you found...
Yeah, I've got the Kiddush when you're ready.
Yep, off you go.
Yeah?
Yep.
אלה מועדי אדוני מקראי קודש, אשר תקראו אותם במועדם. These are the appointed seasons of the Eternal One, the days of public worship, which you shall proclaim at their appointed times. דבר משה את מועדי אדוני אל בני ישראל. And Moses announced the appointed seasons of the Eternal One to the people of Israel. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Pesach Sameach.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Matzah here for anyone who fancies. We made matzah bark yesterday in our household, which I should have brought in and I forgot as I ran. So it's matzah with chocolate and nuts and dried raspberries. It looks amazing. So I'm sure there'll be some. I'll bring it for next week. Chag Sameach, everyone.